This Let's Edit with Media Composer tutorial is brought to you by VideoGuys.com, the leading reseller of video editing and production equipment for more than 25 years. Check out VideoGuys.com for great deals on Avid Media Composer software licenses, subscriptions, and upgrades, and use coupon code MC101 for 5% off any purchase. Hey everyone, Kevin P McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Media Composer 101 tutorial. And in this lesson, in our continuing look at editing music videos, I thought we'd start to get into effects work. And in this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you can implement custom transitions into your music video timelines. Now, it's not as simple as you might think, and there are a whole bunch of things that you're going to need to consider when doing this process. Now, in this lesson, it's not about creating the custom transitions. Now, I've built my own. What's important to keep in mind is that obviously Media Composer comes with some standard transitions, but if you want to take that to the next level, and let's say you don't necessarily have a lot of After Effects experience, you can always look out there to companies like Rampant Design Tools that specialize in making transitions like this. Now, in this lesson, we're going to talk specifically about how to take these elements that you might already have created or that you've purchased from a third-party company and how you're going to easily implement them into your timeline. Okay, short introduction here. Let's just get into Media Composer and let's get started. Now, actually, before I get into Media Composer, what I should probably do is just show you the custom transition that we will be working with. Now, as you can see, this is just about as basic as it's going to get. Again, like I said, if you want to get more complicated and you have the After Effects chops, by all means, get into After Effects and start creating very cool custom transitions. But if you don't, keep an eye out there for those third-party companies. Again, like I said, Rampant Design Tools is one of them, that you can purchase these elements for a really reasonable price. And then it's really just drag, drop, and go. Okay, so let's now Command and Tab into Media Composer. Okay, and what's important for me to point out about this project is if I navigate over to the Format tab, you will see that it is 720p 23976. Now, the transition clip that we will be working with here, let me just open this with QuickTime Player 7. Let's head on up to Window to Show Movie Inspector. This clip it's DNX HD, it is 1920 by 1080. Now, of course, 2398, so the same frame rate, that's all good. What we need to now decide is, do we want to transcode this clip as a larger than the project size clip, or do we want to just transcode it and just make it 720p? Now, for the purposes of what we're doing, I'm fine transcoding this as 720p. Now, of course, we could leave it as an AMA link to file. It doesn't really matter. It really all depends on your workflow. So let's first AMA link to this file. You'll see I have it right here on the desktop called Appropriately Enough Transition. I'm simply going to open that up. You'll see I have it right here. I'm just going to simply hit play. Now, just so we don't have sort of this double action happening here, I'm just going to quit out of QuickTime. And again, there it is. It's a little bit long, and that's okay because we're going to talk about that in just a second. But let me quickly transcode this. We're going to navigate up to Clip. Of course, I'm going to come down to Consolidate Transcode. We're going to select Transcode. We're going to send this to my G-Speed Studio RAID. We're going to leave the raster dimensions, of course, as the project dimensions, which means that the clip is going to be shrunk down to be 720p 23976. We will apply the color encoding and frame flex. And let's just set the resolution to be DNX HD. We'll leave it as 60. I think that's fine. And I'm simply going to say transcode. Now, of course, I could run this in the background if I wanted to, but the clip's only 2 seconds long, so really this is only going to take like a matter of seconds. You'll see pretty much I wasn't even done talking, and this clip is done transcoding. So you'll see that we now have the clip here. This is now in my computer. It's been converted to MXF Media. And now let's talk about actually applying this as a transition in my timeline. Now, I have a few different sequences here. Now, you'll see really the only difference between the two sequences is that I've taken this clip and I've extended it down to be the length of 2 clips. You'll see here. I removed this shot of my singer dancing, and I just extended the keyboard shot all the way down. Now, this is something that I see editors do all the time. They'll be in a situation where they'll get a transition like this that I purposely made long. I purposely made it 2 seconds long. And they'll get in and they'll compromise their edit to make their transition work, when really you shouldn't have to do that. You should really be able to manipulate the transition so that it works with your edit. Now, in the example that I have here, what I'm going to do is just show you how to apply this transition to this clip. Let's just say hypothetically it was just 2 clips that we wanted to apply it to. Okay? So all I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take the transition and I'm going to drop it in not on V2, but up here on V3, and we're going to start the transition right at the edit point, just like such. Now what's going to happen is that as soon as we get to the edit point, you're going to see the transition's going to kick in, and we should have our singer dancing here, still in the background, in the black area, and in the white area, what's going to appear is the keyboards, okay? Now what's important to keep in mind is that right now I really only have one of those elements visible, which is what's going to be appearing in the white, which is the keyboards, because I didn't extend down my singer dancing here. So let's do that. What I'm going to do is just extend him down right over top of that keyboard track, just like this, okay? Now just for the purposes of me keeping my timelines nice and clean, I like to put the video, I just like to add that little edit, put the video back on V1, and what we need to do now is we need to track down how we're going to do this transition. Well, what's important to keep in mind is that much like when you import a QuickTime file that has an alpha channel, that alpha channel gets imported as a matte key. So what we need to do inside of Media Composer is we need to look for the matte key effect. Now, of course, we can always find any key effects located right down here in the key category, and you'll see matte key is located right here. All I'm going to do is simply take it and drag it and drop it onto the transition, and as soon as I do now, you're going to see that what we have is my singer doing his little dance, and then here comes my transition, just like such. Okay? Wow, that's pretty long. Okay? We want to take this, and we've got a couple things going on. Now I'm just going to leave this the way that it is, because that was really just to show you how we're going to get in and apply that transition to really any clips in any timeline, assuming that we don't really care how long the shot before and after is. But in example 2, we have a really tight edit that we're going to need to conform to. This is what it looks like. Okay? We need to have this transition happen very quickly. Now, there's a couple ways that we can do this. The process is still the same with lining these clips up. So let's just get the process happening here. Okay? What I'm going to do is just extend this down like such. Okay, again, I'm just going to add an edit. We're going to take that clip, drag it right back down to V1. We're now ready to get in and apply that transition. Now you'll see that if I hit T on the keyboard to mark that entire duration, we're looking at 1 second and 11 frames. So a couple things that we can do here. Now, the first thing that I should do here is in my command palette, one thing that I always love, or one command that I always love to have in the Composer window, because I use it all the time, is the Motion Effects Editor. I'm simply going to take that, drag it right over here, because in most cases it's the clip that you're going to call up into the preview window that you're going to be doing your motion effects to. So what I could do is I could simply take this clip, I'm just going to mark the entire duration, I'm just going to change the speed of this clip to be, of course, 200%, not 500%, that'd be a little bit too much. Let's make it 200%, and what we're going to do is we're just going to make it VTR style here. And let us create and render. You'll see the transition appears right here. And all I'm going to do now with this transition that's now 1 second long is exactly what we had done before. Is I'm going to take this, I'm going to drop it in there, and you're going to see that the transition is going to happen super fast. Okay? Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that my little dancing singer doesn't extend past the end of the transition, or it's going to cut back to him full frame. So let's just remove him from right there, and again, exactly the same thing. Let's just head back to the effects palette. Let's come right back to matte key. We're going to do a simple drag and drop, and now what we have is that transition working exactly the way that we want to. Okay? But now here's the thing. Let's say you then decide, well, you know what, that's a little bit too fast, and I'd really rather have it a little bit slower. And what you end up finding yourself doing is constantly going back and creating all these different motion effects to try to get the look that you want, when you don't have to do that at all. So how do we go about doing the exact same effect without having to do it right up here as a motion effect? Well, let me show you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my original clip. We're going to take the whole original clip here, and I'm just going to drop it right in on V3, just like such. Okay. Now, we pretty much haven't figured out exactly how long we want this clip to be, but we know that when it gets full frame is when we're going to cut out our singer. Now, for the purpose of what we're doing, I'm just going to sort of leave everything the way that it is, and what we're going to do is we're going to head back into the effects palette, and I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom to the time warp section. Now, in the time warp section is an effect called, appropriately enough, time warp. And time warp works very simple. I'm just going to drag it and drop it onto the transition, and right now when you take the effect and drag and drop it onto a shot, it is 100% duration, or it's 100% your clip length. If your clip was 5 seconds long, as soon as you drop that time warp on there, it's 5 seconds. Nothing changes. You can see 100%. But what we have the ability to do is to navigate up to the tools drop down. I'm going to come down to the motion effects editor. And in the motion effects editor, when working like this, what I like to do is I like to open up the speed graph. The speed graph is very handy. And what I'm going to do is just come right back to the start of this shot. And let's just say hypothetically we wanted to speed it up 200% like we just did. Well, to do that is actually very simple. We can either take our little keyframe here and just drag it like such and get it as close to 200 as possible, or simply just punch in a value of 200 right here. And now you'll see that at the 1 second mark of our clip here, we're going to be full frame like such. Now, of course, it's going to freeze on that last frame, which is no problem because all we can do is just cut the end of that shot off. And what we now have, if we come back to our matte key effect inside of our key section, I can now simply take animat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, and it's not, of course, not animat, it's the matte key. And I'm going to option drag that down because, of course, we want to keep the time warp effect on there. And what we now have, again, much like we had before, is that effect that's much, much faster. Now, I'm just going to undo what I just did, okay? Because maybe I don't want it to be an even second. Maybe I want it to be maybe a little bit faster. No problem. Let's just say we just want to make it, 210. Okay? I'm just going to make it 210. Again, we're going to do exactly the same thing. Come right down to here to where it goes full frame. And that's going to be our out point. So let's just make sure we do go full frame because that's what we want to have it do. So I should got to go down one more frame here. Okay? Now in reality, that only adjusts our edit by 1 frame, but you'll see that we got to make sure that that singer is gone. So let's just move him back 1 frame, and you'll see this is really where you can get in and customize your transitions duration however you want to. Now again, we're going back to matte key, not animat. I'm going to option drag back onto that shot, just like such. And there we go. So really we have the ability to get in and not only create very cool custom transitions, but you can get in and really customize them inside of your Media Composer timeline using either the motion effect editor or of course using the time warp effect. Now that does bring up an interesting question because all of the effects that I've shown you so far are done using the outgoing shot or the outgoing portion of this shot, the outgoing handles of this shot to lead into the next shot. But what if we wanted to do this in reverse? What if instead of having the shot and having the tail of this shot move out like that, we wanted to actually have the tail of this shot start in over top of our guy dancing? Well, let's see if it works exactly the same. All we're going to do here is I'm going to remove everything, okay? And let's take our keyboards and let's move them up and let's back everything up, okay? Now what I'm going to do here is just select V2. Of course, I've only got an in point marked. I'm just going to use the extend key. Love the extend key. One of my favorite shortcuts on the keyboard, okay? And let's take this, let's drag and drop it back down, of course, just to keep everything nice and neat. And again, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take my sped up transition and let's just make sure that we do have a second. Here we got a second and 6 frames. What we want to do is make sure that this transition is going to end at the cut, just like such, okay? I'm going to drop it in, and now you see that what's going to happen, and of course, again, we want to make sure that our keyboards don't start until the transition starts. So what we should be able to do is to simply come right back to our matte key, and we're just going to bring it, and we're going to drag and drop right onto it. But take a look at what happens. We cut to our singer singing, and what happens is that the matte key then suddenly switches to the keyboard playing, and then reveals the singer, and then cuts back to the keyboard. So what's actually happened is because we've switched the way that this transition is coming in, our animation has now become reversed instead of the way it was before. So how do we get in and fix this? Well, it's actually very easy. You'll remember that because we had it going on the outgoing tail of that shot, everything was fine. Everything's in reverse now, or it's inverted. So all we want to do is take our transition here with the matte key. I'm simply going to navigate right up here to invert key, and now the effect is going to do exactly what I want it to do. Very cool. So you'll see that no matter how we have this set up, it's actually very easy to get in and have it go on the outgoing tail or the incoming tail of whichever shot you want. The only thing that's important to keep in mind is that just remember you're going to need to get in and toggle that invert key on the matte key effect to get the effect to work exactly the way that you need to. Now, I want to make sure that I give a big thanks to EditStock for providing me with this fantastic music video footage to work with, and if you're looking for some footage to get yourself up to speed with a certain aspect of editing, head on over and check them out at editstock.com, and I'm sure you'll be able to find a project that will suit any type of work that you think you need to brush up on. Now, before I wrap up this lesson, I want to thank our sponsor Video Guys, and don't forget to check them out and use coupon code MC101 for 5% off your Avid purchase or any other purchase including G Technology storage, software plugins, and so much more. And if you like this tutorial, please click that subscribe button, and don't forget that if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can post them in the comments section below this lesson, or you can send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.